Yah, yah, yippee, yippee, yah. Singing yah, yah, yippee, yippee, yah. All right, we're doing the Origin 3 breakdown. Pretty evident by my reaction. Yes, I'm a biased Queensland fan. Uh, we are the 2017 State of Origin series winners, so we back three in a row. Um, yeah, what an enthralling conclusion to the series. Something that me personally I didn't predict. I didn't see a Queensland 13 plus victory coming, and I don't think anyone really did. Looking in the betting markets, I think a 13 plus um, win for Queensland was paying about $7 or something. So yeah, not expected by the tipsters whatsoever. But aside from that, I want to dive straight into a few of the key stats, and we'll run through the highlights and see who starred for each respective team. So we'll pull some stats up here. So this is just the head-to-head. So obviously the score ended 22-6 in favour of Queensland. So 4 tries to 1. See over on the right-hand side of the screen, Val Holmes with the hat-trick scored their first 3 with Wallace wrapping the show up. Even after a bit of I guess, it was made interesting by the fact that Dugan scored so early in that second half to get it to 12-6. But once they recaptured that, it was definitely all Queensland for that last 20 odd minutes. You could just tell in the body language of the Blues. So you look at stats there as far as opportunities with the football. New South Wales actually had one more set than Queensland. Queensland just completed a little bit better, completed 2 more sets, so just cracked that 80%. You can see there in the running meters for the amount of footy they had, Queensland just did more with it, and line break 6-0. That's pretty much the most damaging one. We'll look more into that, but then also the missed tackles, 38 in comparison to Queensland's 21. And then just the little bit of, there's only one goal line dropout, but it came at a crucial time late in the game from Munster. Was able to generate that. Otherwise, around the errors, 3 more errors by New South Wales, and penalty count I thought was quite good. To only see 9 penalties in an Origin match, and a lot of them were early on, just sort of testing out the referee, holding down the ruck and the ruck speed and the like. But if we're looking at individual stats, it was pretty much made up on the right hand side for Queensland. It was Billy Slater's ability to create time and space for Chambers and Gagai a lot of the time that were shooting down that edge, and we see there that those guys ended up with the majority of the meters, even though Valentine Holmes ended up finishing every time in the opposite corner. You see there Billy Slater, 144 meters, 2 line breaks. Chambers, 149 meters, and Dane Gagai with 168 meters, 23 carries. Did a lot of work for his forwards coming out of the back end. I think defensively for Queensland, that's where they really stood up. See Dylan Napa and Wallace. Wallace, I think finally, I think Kevy got the balance of the interchange right. So the starting props got just over a half of footy under their belt. I think it was good getting Maguire off for a little bit too, and then you have a look at the benchies. Was dispersed for about 30-minute stints, so it was evenly poised with Maguire just going that little bit extra to get everyone home. Notable mention has to be Josh Dugan. I was at the game last night, and I felt that everything that he was doing for New South Wales, he was trying his guts out, and was probably the only one who looked likely when he had footy in his hands. But yeah, we'll steer away from the individual stats now, and we'll pull up some of the video just as we get to talking over the top. So where I sort of felt the game was won and lost was pretty much just in that first half. Queensland did a really, really good job of just holding the football for longer than New South Wales, but just being a bit smarter with how they finished with the footy. New South Wales didn't really get an opportunity to attack too often in that first half. The Queensland just smothered them out of the game in that first 40. But they had their opportunity come late with a penalty, and they just didn't really offer up too much. And when you got finishes like that, like Morgan, again, not a centre, but still finds a way to throw a magical ball playing in the opposite centre this time. So he did it for the winning try for Gagai last week, and then does it for the opener for Holmes. But yeah, the Queensland just did what they needed to do. They limited the ability of a feeder around the ruck, as well as Woods around the ruck. They were quite ineffective. I don't even think Aaron Woods cracked double figures as far as hit-ups were concerned. And they were pretty unlucky here, Queensland. I thought that the score could have really blown out to 24-0 by half-time. If this gets awarded a try, I felt like it was a try. They need to ground the ball with the torso, but hey, that might just be that little bit of bias in Queensland coming out of me. And I think it was just a fundamental fuck-up from Cameron Smith, looking for that pass back on the edge, which we'll see a little bit later. But yeah, obviously the debut. How's that for a fucking kick from Cooper Cronk? You won't see that ever again. You won't ever see a half be able to just execute on that level that Cooper Cronk does. Like, I don't even remember seeing Joey Johns do shit like that. I know he revolutionised the kicking game with his ability to, turn the ball inside, turn the ball outside as far as his torpedo kicks, his banana kicks. But yeah, Munster was great on debut. I just thought his creativity and his willingness just to go the extra mile. We see the fuck up there from Cameron Smith. It was probably a little bit unlucky. Probably thought he could beat the guys back on the inside. And then just got a little bit rushed, and then by that stage, Michael Morgan had overrun the play. But yeah, we see there on that right edge, didn't come off all the time, but they were always creating space. Billy Slater getting on the outside, I believe, was the fundamental area in which Queensland would continually be able to get on the front foot. And just a few of his defensive efforts early on, you might not have been able to see it too much watching at home. But watching the game, I was in the southern stand, so could actually see the whole play unfold left to right. And his work off the ball and just his urgency around the ruck, but then to get on his bike and you go edge to edge like every good fullback should be able to do. You couldn't ask for more. When you see Valentine Holmes score like that, as a New South Wales supporter, I guess it's just Queensland's night, you know what I mean? But it just came back to a bit more desperation. The last two tries for Queensland, Valentine Holmes had no right to catch that ball and score that try, and Jared Wallace has no right for Fafita not to fucking dig in and dive on that ball. That's just the cumulative 1%ers that got Queensland over the line in the end. I honestly didn't see a series victory coming Queensland's way. I wasn't really buying into the fact that the game was being played in Queensland, or the winning record that Queensland had in deciders at Suncorp. But hey, they got the results in the end, didn't they? So where does New South Wales turn to now? I guess the big stress in essence is, I guess, for the first 55 minutes, 60 minutes, they didn't play that badly. It's not like they played terrible in that first 40. They just got drowned out. Their attacking kicks, well, they weren't attacking. I think that was the problem. There wasn't enough hang time on any of their balls when they were, they did exactly what I said they should do and try and keep the ball away from Slater, and that was a pretty obvious tactic. I don't think you had to be a genius to figure out that was the likely game plan for those. Get it to the smaller body in Gagai and the like. But when they did put the footy up, it was landing 20, 25 metres out, whereas Queensland were then getting on the front foot off that extra 10, 15 metres that they had straight off the bat and being able to pressure New South Wales inside their own 10. We've seen, it wasn't like there was a whole heap of continual build-up of pressure like we're used to seeing in State of Origin. There was only one goal line dropout, and that was late in the second half. Where do New South Wales turn to now? The fact that they've stuck to their guns for the first time since 1996, I think it was. They've kept the same squad. In my opinion, I'd probably lean towards keeping things the same. I know a lot of people would disagree with me on that. What's the point in keeping things the same? You've lost the series. But that same team did put nearly 30 points on that team. Yes, I know that team drastically changed. There were 7 changes made, and they've gone on one game 2 and 3. and even did so in game three without the likes of Thurston, Boyd, and Scott. Um, so, there's some more counter arguments that New South Wales have to overcome in that respect as well. But yeah, to continually dump the responsibility on a halfback like Mitchell Pearce, I thought he tried his ass off. I thought, defensively he got caught out. Just it was sheer volume in the end. I think him and Maloney ended up with 17 combined missed tackles, but that was just through sheer volume that Queensland threw at them. I think they were forced to make somewhere in the vicinity of 15 to 17 more tackles than the Queensland halves. And if you look at that, it's got nothing to do with possession rates or anything like that. The possession was almost even. So it was just where Queensland decided to play, and they spotted that. And weaknesses crept in, frustration crept in, and the forwards they just started getting a little bit lazy. I thought David Clemmer was really, really good for them off the bench. Had a really prominent effect when he first came on. He had a few good carries, but yeah, they just lacked that. I guess gutso up the middle that they did in game one when Fafita was isolating in and around the ruck, around A and B defender, and getting the likes of Tedesco, Maloney, and Pearce pushing up the middle. Tedesco just didn't get his opportunities with the footy, plain and simple. And when they did, they probably give it to him at the wrong time. They just picked the wrong pass. And when they really started to become overwhelmed with the pressure of the scoreboard, I felt like they started playing to their edges a little bit too quickly. They probably pushed that extra pass when they should have just dug in a line, looked for a quick play the ball. Because by that stage, when they pushed too far out on the edge, Queensland were just happy to sling them towards the sideline, try and make things dirty, and slow that ruck up. And it worked quite effectively. They never really, around the point where Dugan scored his try and probably, I'd say the subsequent 3 sets after that, New South Wales really looked like they were going to mount a comeback and that they could have squared things back up to at least 12-10, 12-all, depending on kicks. But it just never happened. And then the penalty got given away. I believe it was Nathan Peets that stripped the ball out, and that was pretty much where all the momentum sunk out of the flags for New South Wales. So yeah, obviously big positives for Queensland now. They went and did that essentially with 16 men, with Ben Hunt only given an opportunity with 8 or 9 minutes to go, purely because it was done and dusted. There was no way that Queensland were going to lose it from there, even if they did concede a late try. So yeah, it's in one respect it's big ticks in the boxes to keep Munster in regardless. So that's going to be some decisions now that will be made. You would imagine that, the likes of Ben Hunt probably wouldn't be included in the side because you anticipate that perhaps it's, a lot's going to depend on whether or not Cooper Cronk goes around next year. There was not really much said as far as celebratory terms go for Cooper Cronk. So I guess that decision still hasn't been made, which means he's still considering a move to Sydney. And the two leading clubs they're getting press time are the Sharks and the Rabbitohs at present. But yeah, outside of that, I guess you start to look at Munster and Milford. How does that pose as an Origin halves pairing? Do you look at, if I'm trying to emulate that sort of energy relationship, I still lean towards Munster and Cherry Evans. But if they've already picked Ben Hunt over Cherry Evans, well, maybe he gets the nod. But then what happens when Milford's back in the fray? There's no real cause for a Hunt-Milford partnership in the sense of clubland, because we all know that Hunt won't be at the Broncos next year. But is that still a tick in both their boxes because they have played footy together? So, all these things start to accumulate left and right, Queensland and New South Wales, as far as decisions for coming series. But I think it sort of worked inversely for New South Wales. It wasn't so much pressure that they'd put on themselves to win. I don't think they'd put enough on it. I thought it was like, we've stuck to the same side. Queensland have ridiculed us for years for not picking and sticking. Now we're doing it. We're doing what Queensland done, and now Queensland's in our boat. Welcome. We've had to make all these changes, and oh fuck, they made it work. We didn't. So yeah, they've got caught with their pants down a little bit, and yeah, moving into 2018. I thought Gus in the post game probably didn't go about it either the right way, or he probably didn't come across quite the way he wanted to sound, and how he's talking about Laurie Daly, and he's not a professional coach. And I think what he just meant there is he's not a club coach. He's very passionate about this style of football, and now that he cares so much and he's reeling from all the hurt, he's only got a 20% series win percentage. So how does that add up as far as KPIs of that role? If you're only performing at 20%, you're not going to keep your job in clubland, that's for sure. So yeah, moving forward, I think they've got to start looking a little bit left and right, and who's going to be that next coach to come in. It would be very interesting to see who the next in line would be. I think I've heard Freddie Fittler's name get tossed up. I think just with his media presence and personality, I don't think he's the right man for the job. He doesn't really handle finding that medium very well. You see him try and get pally with the guys in the sheds, and he's doing the pre-game, and he's being a dickhead, but then he's trying to be serious. And I don't know, I don't know Freddie on a personal level, obviously, and how he interacts with players and how that translates into getting respect in the room. But we've seen him had a crack at coaching at Clubland, and didn't really end too prettily. So as far as seeing passion with a combination of knowledge, I think Andrew Johns would be the perfect candidate. But whether that name's been tossed up, and whether or not that's something that's on his radar, I don't know. But yeah, you can just sort of see with his post-game analysis, he seems to feel like he's got the things that need to occur behind closed doors that are going to work for the players of this modern era. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting moving forward. But fundamentally, Queensland just did the basics right early, do what every football team should aspire to do, and hold the football, be constructive with how you finish your sets, and most importantly, get more results than not at the end of your sets. And yeah, they did that. They were a little bit more desperate at sort of 50-50 points in the game, and that's what got them the results. So yeah, that's how I saw game 3 of the 2017 Origin series. And yeah, I'm very intrigued to see how that game positions the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years of Origin, and how New South Wales are going to bounce back. I'm very happy with how I sort of watched the game, and I feel like I'm quite objective to, I'm not one of these one-eyed supporters that simply just wants to see New South Wales lose because they're not my team. I'm very interested in the intricacies and on how they're going to bounce back, and what does work and what doesn't work. So yeah, the next 12 months as far as those selections around coaching roles, halves positions, the few older heads in that side like Maloney and Morris, are they around again next year, or are they just trying to tweak a few little things? What happens in the halves department once Milford's back? What's happening with Cronk? Yeah, there's heaps of fucking cool shit that's going to happen in 2018, that's for sure, and I can't wait for it to all happen again. So that is it. I'll be back again tomorrow to preview everything round 19, and we'll dive into it then on Footy Rants. Until then, Benny Matthews is out. Chat later.